She gave up her plane ticket for a desperate stranger holding a crying baby, never imagining that in 48 hours, she'd be sitting in his boardroom as he decided her fate. She thought she was just being kind. He thought she was an angel. Neither of them knew that one act of compassion would ignite a love story that would reshape a billion-dollar empire and save two broken hearts forever. The fluorescent lights of JFK Airport buzzed overhead like angry wasps as Maya Chen clutched her laptop bag tighter against her chest. Gate B7 was packed with frustrated travelers, their voices rising above the announcement crackling through the speakers. Flight 447 to Seattle has been delayed an additional 2 hours due to severe weather conditions. Maya's heart sank deeper with each word. She glanced at her phone, 11:47 p.m. Her interview at Blackstone Industries was scheduled for 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, the interview that could change everything. The position of senior marketing strategist wasn't just a job, it was her lifeline out of the crushing debt that had been suffocating her since her mother's cancer treatment. She looked down at her outfit, a navy blue suit she'd borrowed from her roommate, shoes that pinched her feet but looked professional, and a portfolio filled with mock campaigns she'd created during countless sleepless nights. Everything she owned was riding on this opportunity. Around her, business executives tapped impatiently on their phones, families with children sprawled across uncomfortable airport chairs, and flight attendants moved with practiced efficiency through the chaos. The storm outside painted the windows with sheets of rain, lightning illuminating the darkness beyond. "Attention passengers," the gate agent's voice cut through the noise. "Due to the weather delay, we have limited seats available on the next departure. We're currently looking for volunteers to take a later flight in exchange for travel vouchers." Maya's stomach tightened. She couldn't take a later flight. This was her only chance. She'd spent her last $300 on the plane ticket, and her credit cards were maxed out. There was no backup plan, no safety net. Just this one shot at proving she was more than the statistics that said kids from her neighborhood didn't make it to corner offices. The gate area grew more tense as passengers realized the gravity of the situation. Children began to cry, adults raised their voices, and Maya found herself gripping her phone, staring at the confirmation email from Blackstone Industries. The company her business school professors had called untouchable, the place where marketing legends were born. She closed her eyes and tried to steady her breathing. Tomorrow, everything would change. She just had to get on that plane. The storm couldn't win. Not tonight. Not when she was this close to finally making her mother's sacrifices mean something. Through the chaos of Gate B7, Maya's attention was drawn to a commotion near the check-in counter. A tall man in an expensive but disheveled suit was gently bouncing a baby against his shoulder, his voice barely audible over the infant's piercing cries. Even from a distance, Maya could see the exhaustion etched into his features, dark circles under his eyes, stubble that suggested he hadn't slept, and a posture that spoke of a man carrying more weight than anyone should bear alone. The baby, wrapped in a pink blanket, couldn't have been more than 6 months old. Her cries were the desperate kind that cut straight through to your soul, the kind that meant she needed more than food or a diaper change, she needed comfort, security, peace. The man's attempts to soothe her were gentle but ineffective, his large hands trembling slightly as he adjusted her position. "Sir, I understand your situation," the gate agent was saying, her voice professional but sympathetic. "But we only have 3 standby seats remaining, and there are 47 passengers on the list." "Please," the man replied, his voice cracking with desperation. "I have to be in Seattle tomorrow morning. It's not just important, it's critical. My company." He stopped himself, glancing down at the crying baby. "We both need to be there." Maya watched as his phone buzzed insistently. She caught a glimpse of the screen when he shifted the baby. "Blackstone emergency," flashed in bold letters, followed by, "board meeting, hostile takeover imminent." Her breath caught. Blackstone. The same company where she had her interview. The baby's cries intensified, and other passengers began to stare with a mixture of sympathy and annoyance. A businessman near Maya muttered something about keeping babies off flights, and she felt her jaw clench. The stranger heard it too, his shoulders sagging further as shame and helplessness warred across his face. His diaper bag, an expensive leather piece that looked unused and unfamiliar, slipped from his shoulder, spilling formula packets and baby wipes across the floor. As he knelt to gather the items while still holding the screaming infant, Maya saw the exact moment when his composure finally cracked. His hands shook as he tried to stuff everything back into the bag, his breathing becoming shallow and rapid. "Emma, please," he whispered to the baby, his voice barely audible but filled with such raw pain that Maya felt her heart constrict. "Daddy's trying his best. I know it's not enough. I know Mommy would know what to do, but..." His voice broke completely. That's when Maya realized this wasn't just about a delayed flight. This was about a man at the absolute edge of his breaking point, holding on to the only thing that mattered while watching everything else slip away. Final boarding call for standby passengers on Flight 447 to Seattle, the gate agent announced, her voice cutting through the terminal noise like a blade. "We have 3 seats remaining. I need 3 passengers to step forward now." Maya's heart hammered against her ribs as she stood up, her boarding pass clutched in her sweaty palm. This was it. Her future stood on the other side of that gate. Around her, dozens of other passengers were rising, all desperate to claim one of those 3 precious seats. The stranger with the baby was among them, still gently bouncing the crying infant while trying to manage his falling apart diaper bag. Maya noticed the exact moment when his phone buzzed again, his face went pale as he read the message, and she could practically see the weight of whatever crisis awaited him in Seattle pressing down on his shoulders. "Please form a single line," the gate agent instructed. "I'll need to see your IDs and boarding passes." Maya found herself directly behind the stranger. Up close, she could see the expensive fabric of his suit, the kind that probably cost more than her rent for 3 months. But she also saw the coffee stain on his sleeve, the formula on his shoulder, and the way his hands shook as he tried to find his ID while holding the baby. The baby, Emma, he'd called her, had finally stopped crying and was now hiccuping softly, her tiny fist wrapped around her father's tie. Maya could see the exhaustion in the infant's face, the way she kept trying to settle against her father's chest but couldn't quite find comfort. Next, the gate agent called. The stranger stepped forward, but as he reached for his wallet, his phone slipped from his pocket, clattering to the floor. The baby startled and began crying again, louder than before. He looked at his phone, then at the gate agent, then at his screaming daughter, paralyzed by the impossible task of managing everything at once. Without thinking, Maya stepped forward and picked up his phone. As she handed it back to him, she caught sight of the screen again. "Blackstone Industries, CEO needed immediately, emergency board vote in 6 hours. CEO." The letters seemed to burn into her retinas. This man, this exhausted, overwhelmed father, was the CEO of Blackstone Industries. The company where she had her interview tomorrow. The company that represented everything she'd ever dreamed of achieving. "Thank you," he said quietly, their eyes meeting for the first time. Up close, she could see intelligence in those tired blue eyes, kindness beneath the desperation, and something else, a recognition that she understood what it meant to be drowning. "Sir," the gate agent prompted. "Your boarding pass." Maya watched him fumble with his documents, watched the baby cry, watched the future of 2 lives hanging in the balance. Her own boarding pass felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds in her hand. And then she made the choice that would change everything. "Give his seat to him," Maya said, stepping back from the line. The gate agent looked confused. "Ma'am, you were next. Are you giving up your seat?" "Yes." Maya's voice was steady, even though her heart was breaking. "Give it to him." The stranger stared at her in shock, his mouth slightly open. "Are you serious? You don't understand. You could have something important waiting for you in Seattle." Maya looked at the baby in his arms, then back at his face. Emma had stopped crying the moment Maya spoke, as if she somehow understood that salvation had arrived. "She needs her daddy more than I need to be anywhere tomorrow." But, he started to protest. No buts, Maya interrupted gently. Take the seat. Take care of her. The gate agent processed his boarding pass while he continued to stare at Maya. I don't even know your name, he said. Maya Chen. She managed a smile despite the tears threatening to spill. And you don't need to know anything else. Just be safe. He shifted the baby to one arm and extended his hand. Sebastian Kane. And I need you to know that I'll never forget this. Never. As their hands touched briefly, Maya felt a strange jolt of connection, as if the universe was realigning itself around this moment. But then he was being rushed toward the gate, and she was watching her future board a plane without her. Ma'am, the gate agent said softly, that was incredibly kind. Are you sure there's nothing we can do for you? Maya shook her head, already pulling out her phone to cancel her hotel reservation and email Blackstone Industries about missing her interview. Sometimes kindness is the only thing we can afford to give. As she walked back to the hard plastic chairs to wait for the next available flight, Maya tried not to think about the opportunity she just sacrificed. Instead, she thought about the relief in Sebastian Kane's eyes, the way baby Emma had finally settled peacefully in her father's arms, and the strange certainty that she'd done the right thing. She didn't know that Sebastian Kane was more than just a grateful father. She didn't know that her act of kindness had just saved a billion-dollar company from collapse. And she certainly didn't know that in less than 48 hours, she'd be sitting across from him in a boardroom, her fate entirely in his hands. All she knew was that sometimes, the most important destinations aren't the ones you plan to reach. 48 hours later, Maya stood in the marble lobby of Blackstone Industries, her borrowed suit pressed and her portfolio clutched against her chest like armor. The building rose 52 stories into the Seattle sky, its glass facade reflecting the morning sun like a beacon of corporate power. Everything about it screamed success, from the waterfall feature in the lobby to the silent efficiency of the elevators that whisked executives to heights Maya had only dreamed of reaching. She'd managed to catch a flight the next evening, spending her last $200 on a hotel room where she'd rehearsed her presentation until the words were burned into her memory. The interview had been rescheduled, thanks to what the HR director called extraordinary circumstances and a personal recommendation from Mr. Kane himself. Mr. Kane. Maya had assumed it was coincidence. After all, Kane wasn't an uncommon name. She'd convinced herself that the Sebastian Kane from the airport was just another businessman, probably middle management at some company she'd never heard of. The alternative was too impossible to consider. Ms. Chen. A polished woman in her 30s approached, her smile warm but professional. I'm Jennifer Walsh, Director of Human Resources. Thank you for being flexible with the rescheduling. Of course, Maya replied, following Jennifer toward the elevator bank. I appreciate the opportunity. You should know, Jennifer said as they stepped into the elevator, your application was personally flagged by our CEO. He rarely reviews individual candidates, but something about your profile caught his attention. Maya's stomach dropped. The elevator seemed to rise in slow motion, each floor marking her ascent toward a truth she wasn't ready to face. Here we are, Jennifer announced as they reached the 48th floor. The executive boardroom. You'll be presenting to our senior leadership team, including Mr. Kane. The boardroom was a temple to corporate achievement. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Seattle, while a massive mahogany table dominated the space. 20 executives in perfectly tailored suits were already seated, their attention focused on tablets and smartphones until Maya entered. And there, at the head of the table, sat Sebastian Kane. He was transformed, gone was the disheveled, desperate father from the airport. In his place sat a man who commanded attention effortlessly, his dark suit impeccable, his presence filling the room. But Maya would have recognized those eyes anywhere, the same intelligent blue that had looked at her with such gratitude just days before. Their gazes locked across the room, and Maya watched as recognition dawned on his face. His coffee cup paused halfway to his lips, and something shifted in his expression, surprise, certainly, but also something deeper. Wonder, perhaps. Or fate? Ladies and gentlemen, Jennifer announced, oblivious to the silent communication happening across the room, I'd like you to meet Maya Chen, our candidate for senior marketing strategist. Maya forced herself to breathe, to smile, to pretend that her world hadn't just tilted completely off its axis. She was going to have to pitch her marketing strategy to the man whose life she'd saved at the airport. The man who was now the single most important person in determining her professional future. Sebastian Kane cleared his throat softly. Ms. Chen, he said, his voice carefully neutral but his eyes still wide with recognition. We're very interested to hear what you have to say. Maya's hands trembled as she opened her portfolio, but her voice remained steady as she began to speak. Thank you for this opportunity. Today, I want to talk about revolutionary marketing, the kind that doesn't just sell products, but builds emotional connections that last a lifetime. She clicked to her first slide, grateful for the hours of practice that had turned her presentation into muscle memory. Around the table, the executives leaned forward with polite attention, but Maya's focus kept drifting to Sebastian at the head of the table. He watched her with an intensity that had nothing to do with business metrics and everything to do with the impossible coincidence unfolding before them. Traditional marketing tells customers what they need, Maya continued, finding her rhythm. But Millennial and Gen Z consumers don't want to be told, they want to be understood. They want brands that share their values, that speak to their experiences, that make them feel seen. Her presentation outlined a comprehensive social media strategy that would position Blackstone Industries not just as a tech company, but as a force for positive change. User-generated content campaigns, partnerships with nonprofits, authentic storytelling that highlighted real people solving real problems with Blackstone's innovations. The key, Maya explained, is authenticity. This generation can spot corporate insincerity from a mile away. They want brands that walk the walk, not just talk the talk. They want companies led by people who understand that true success isn't just about profit, it's about purpose. She caught Sebastian's slight smile at those words, and suddenly felt more confident. This was her expertise, her passion. She knew this material inside and out. Our research shows that 73% of millennials are willing to pay more for products from companies that demonstrate social responsibility, she continued, clicking through slides filled with data and compelling graphics. But here's the crucial part, they can tell the difference between genuine commitment and marketing theater. One of the executives, a silver-haired man named Aldrich, interrupted. This all sounds very idealistic, Ms. Chen. But how does it translate to actual revenue? How do we measure the ROI on feeling good about ourselves? Maya didn't miss a beat. Excellent question. Brand loyalty among socially conscious companies is 47% higher than traditional competitors. Customer lifetime value increases by an average of 31%. And most importantly, employee retention improves dramatically when people feel proud of where they work. She clicked to her final slide, a mock campaign she created specifically for Blackstone Industries. Imagine this, real solutions, real impact. We showcase actual customers whose lives have been improved by Blackstone technology. We partner with coding bootcamps in underserved communities. We make our supply chain transparent and ethical. We don't just claim to care, we prove it. The room was silent for a moment after she finished. Maya's heart pounded as she waited for their response, acutely aware that Sebastian hadn't said a word throughout her entire presentation. Finally, he spoke. Ms. Chen, he said, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to making decisions that affected thousands of lives, that's the most compelling marketing strategy this room has seen in years. An hour later, Maya found herself alone with Sebastian in his corner office, the Seattle skyline sprawling below them through floor-to-ceiling windows. The formal boardroom version of him had softened slightly, his tie was loosened, his jacket draped over his chair, and there was a baby carrier tucked discreetly behind his desk. I need to ask you something, he said, turning from the window to face her. Did you know who I was at the airport? Maya hesitated, then shook her head. Not at first. But when you dropped your phone, I saw the screen. Blackstone Industries, CEO. I saw it, and I gave you my seat anyway. Sebastian stared at her for a long moment, something shifting in his expression. You knew this was where you were interviewing, and you still. I did. Maya lifted her chin, meeting his gaze directly. Because some things are more important than career opportunities. He sank into his chair, running a hand through his hair. Maya, I need you to understand what you did that night. My wife, Sarah, died in childbirth 8 months ago. Emma was born 3 months premature, and Sarah, she didn't make it. Maya's hand flew to her mouth. Sebastian, I'm so sorry. I've been barely holding it together since then, he continued, his voice rough with emotion. The company, Emma, trying to be a father when I have no idea what I'm doing. That night at the airport, we were facing a hostile takeover. If I hadn't made it to the emergency board meeting, we would have lost everything. Hundreds of employees would have lost their jobs. He stood and walked to a framed photo on his desk, a beautiful woman with dark hair holding a tiny baby. Sarah believed in kindness above everything else. She used to say that the measure of a person wasn't what they achieved, but how they treated strangers when no one was watching. Maya felt tears pricking her eyes. She sounds wonderful. She would have done exactly what you did, Sebastian said softly. Give up her seat for someone who needed it more. No hesitation, no second thoughts. He looked back at Maya. When I saw you in that boardroom today, I thought maybe Sarah was trying to tell me something. What do you mean? I've been searching for you since that night. I had our security team check airport cameras, had my assistant call the airline. I needed to find you, to thank you properly, to somehow repay what you'd done. He smiled, the first genuine smile she'd seen from him. And then you walked into my boardroom. Maya wiped at her eyes. I didn't do it for a reward. I did it because it was right. I know, Sebastian said. That's exactly what makes it so remarkable. He moved closer to her, his expression serious. Maya, I want to offer you the position. Senior Marketing Strategist, full benefits, salary commensurate with your value to this company. Which, based on your presentation today, is considerable. But I need you to know that I'm offering this because you're brilliant, not because of what happened at the airport. Your ideas, your passion, your understanding of authentic marketing, that's why you belong here. Maya felt her heart racing. This was everything she'd dreamed of, everything she'd worked toward. But she had to be sure. And the airport? What does that mean for us, professionally? Sebastian was quiet for a moment. It means I already know the most important thing about your character. It means I know you'll always do the right thing, even when it costs you something. He extended his hand. What do you say, Maya Chen? Ready to revolutionize some marketing? As their hands touched, Maya felt that same jolt of connection she'd experienced at the airport. Only this time, she understood what it meant. This wasn't just a job offer. This was the beginning of something that would change both their lives forever. 3 months later, Maya had transformed not just Blackstone Industries' marketing strategy, but the entire company culture. Her Real Solutions, Real Impact campaign had generated a 40% increase in brand engagement and a 25% boost in quarterly profits. More importantly, employee satisfaction had reached an all-time high as the company's mission shifted from pure profit to purposeful innovation. Maya's office on the 47th floor had become a hub of creative energy. The walls were covered with campaign mock-ups, customer testimonials, and photos from their recent volunteer day at a local coding bootcamp. She'd instituted Impact Fridays, where employees could spend the last half of their week working on community projects that aligned with their skills. But the most significant change wasn't visible in quarterly reports or marketing metrics. It was the way Sebastian had begun to smile again. Their working relationship had evolved into something deeper, not romantic, exactly, but a profound partnership built on mutual respect and shared values. Maya had become Sebastian's trusted advisor, the person he turned to when difficult decisions needed to be made. In return, he'd given her the freedom to implement ideas that traditional corporations would have dismissed as too risky. "Maya," Sebastian called from his office doorway. "Could you come in here for a moment?" She found him standing by the window, baby Emma balanced on his hip. At 9 months old, Emma had grown into a bright, curious child with her father's blue eyes and an infectious laugh that could charm even the most serious board members. She'd started spending more time at the office as Sebastian refused to sacrifice time with his daughter for corporate demands. "Mama." Emma squealed when she saw Maya, reaching out with chubby arms. Maya's heart melted as it did every time Emma called her that. The name had started accidentally. Sebastian had been working late, Emma was fussy, and Maya had offered to help with the bedtime routine. Somewhere between the lullabies and gentle rocking, Emma had decided that Maya was Mama, and the name had stuck. "She's been asking for you all morning," Sebastian said, transferring Emma to Maya's arms. "I think she missed you while you were in the Portland meeting." Maya nuzzled Emma's cheek, breathing in that sweet baby scent. "I missed her too." "How did the investor call go?" "Better than expected. They're impressed with our Q3 numbers and want to discuss expanding our social impact initiatives." Sebastian's expression grew more serious. "Maya, there's something I need to tell you. Victoria Sterling called this morning." Maya's blood ran cold. Victoria Sterling, Sebastian's former business partner and ex-fiancée, the woman who'd left Blackstone Industries in a bitter split 2 years ago to start a competing firm. She was brilliant, ruthless, and according to office gossip, still harbored feelings for Sebastian. What did she want? "She wants back in. She's proposing a merger between our companies, with her taking over the marketing division." Sebastian watched Maya's face carefully. "She claims she can double our market share within 6 months." Maya tried to keep her expression neutral, but her heart was racing. Victoria Sterling was a legend in the marketing world, with connections and experience that Maya couldn't match. If Sebastian was considering the merger. "What did you tell her?" "I told her I'd think about it." Sebastian moved closer, his voice gentle. "Maya, you know that's not what I want, right? This company, Emma, our work together, you're a part of all of it now." Before Maya could respond, Emma grabbed a handful of Maya's hair and babbled something that sounded suspiciously like, "No go, Mama." "Smart girl," Sebastian said with a smile. "She knows what's important too." But Maya couldn't shake the feeling that Victoria Sterling's return was going to complicate everything they'd built together. She'd learned enough about Sebastian's past to know that Victoria had been more than just a business partner. She'd been the woman he'd planned to marry before Sarah came into his life. And now she was coming back, just when Maya was beginning to realize that her feelings for Sebastian had grown far beyond professional admiration. Victoria Sterling swept into Blackstone Industries like a force of nature, her designer heels clicking against the marble lobby with the confidence of someone who'd once called this place home. Tall, elegant, with platinum blonde hair and the kind of aggressive beauty that graced magazine covers, she commanded attention wherever she went. Maya watched from the 47th floor as Victoria's town car pulled up to the building, her stomach churning with an emotion she didn't want to name. Jealousy was beneath her, she told herself. This was about business, about protecting the company culture they'd worked so hard to build. "She's here," Maya announced to her team, trying to keep her voice neutral. "The infamous Victoria Sterling," said Marcus, Maya's deputy. "I heard she once closed $1 million deal during her own birthday party." Within hours of Victoria's arrival, the office atmosphere had shifted. She moved through the building like she'd never left, greeting old colleagues with familiarity and charm. Maya noticed how the older executives, the ones who'd been skeptical of her youth and unconventional ideas, gravitated toward Victoria with obvious relief. The first direct confrontation came during the Monday morning strategy meeting. Victoria had positioned herself across from Maya at the conference table, her presentation materials spread out with theatrical precision. "While I applaud the enthusiasm, Of recent marketing efforts, Victoria began, her smile sharp as a blade, I think it's time we return to proven strategies that generate concrete results rather than feel-good metrics. She clicked through a presentation that systematically dismantled everything Maya had built over the past 3 months. The volunteer programs were dismissed as resource drains. The authentic storytelling campaigns were labeled amateurish. The partnerships with nonprofits were characterized as brand dilution. Emotional marketing has its place, Victoria continued, her gaze fixed on Maya, but this is a technology company, not a therapy session. Our shareholders want returns, not warm feelings. Maya felt her face flush as several board members nodded in agreement. These were the same people who'd praised her strategies just weeks before, but Victoria's confidence was infectious, her experience undeniable. Maya, Sebastian said gently, would you like to respond? Standing up, Maya felt every eye in the room on her. Victoria raises valid points about measurable outcomes. But I'd like to remind everyone that our Q3 profits increased by 40% under the current strategy. More importantly, our employee retention rate is at an all-time high, saving us approximately $2 million in recruitment and training costs. Correlation isn't causation, Victoria replied smoothly. The market upturn could account for those numbers. What matters is sustainability, and I'm not convinced that marketing campaigns based on kindness are built to last. The way she said kindness made it sound like a weakness, and Maya felt her temper flare. But before she could respond, Sebastian intervened. I think we've heard enough for today. Thank you both for your perspectives. As the meeting dispersed, Victoria approached Maya with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I hope there are no hard feelings, she said. I'm sure this transition will be smooth for everyone. What transition? Maya asked. Victoria's smile widened. Oh, didn't Sebastian tell you? We're having dinner tonight to discuss the merger terms. I think you'll find my proposal quite compelling. Maya watched Victoria glide out of the conference room, her confidence absolute. For the first time since joining Blackstone Industries, Maya wondered if her fairy tale was about to come crashing down. That evening, she stayed late at the office, ostensibly to work on quarterly projections but really to avoid thinking about Sebastian and Victoria sharing dinner, sharing memories, sharing a history that Maya could never be part of. She didn't notice the footsteps in the hallway until it was too late to hide the tears on her cheeks. Maya. Sebastian's voice was soft with concern as he appeared in her office doorway. Why are you still here? It's almost 9 o'clock. She quickly wiped her eyes and turned back to her computer. Just finishing up some reports. How was your dinner? She heard him step into the office, heard the sound of him settling into the chair across from her desk. It was illuminating. Maya forced herself to look at him. He'd loosened his tie and rolled up his sleeves, and there was something troubled in his expression that made her stomach clench. Victoria made me an offer, he continued. Full merger, with her taking over as chief marketing officer and head of the entire consumer division. She'd bring her client list, her team, her connections. On paper, it's everything we need to dominate the market. Congratulations, Maya said, hating how hollow her voice sounded. Maya, look at me. When she didn't, he moved around the desk and knelt beside her chair. I told her no. Maya's eyes snapped to his. What? I told her no, he repeated. Because what we've built here isn't just about market domination. It's about creating something meaningful, something that makes a difference. Victoria sees business as warfare. You see it as community. Before Maya could respond, her phone buzzed with an alert from the company's social media monitoring system. Then another. Then a dozen more in rapid succession. What is it? Sebastian asked, noticing her expression. Maya's hands flew over her keyboard, pulling up their social media accounts. Her heart sank as she saw the trending hashtag #BlackstoneHypocrisy. Someone had leaked internal emails, taken out of context, that made it appear as though the company's social responsibility initiatives were just elaborate PR stunts. "Sebastian," she whispered, "we're being destroyed online." The posts were coordinated, professional, devastating. Screenshots of budget allocations that seemed to prioritize marketing over actual charitable giving. Quotes from anonymous employees claiming the volunteer programs were mandatory and resented. Photos of the coding bootcamp partnership with captions suggesting it was exploitation rather than education. Sebastian pulled out his phone and called security. "I need to know who accessed the marketing department's servers in the past 48 hours." He paused, listening. "Are you sure?" "All right, send me the report." When he hung up, his face was grim. "Victoria requested access to the marketing files yesterday. Said she needed to review our current campaigns for the merger discussion." Maya felt sick. "She's sabotaging us. Destroying our reputation so that when she makes her next offer, the board will have no choice but to accept." "Why would she do this?" "Because she wants you back," Maya said quietly. "The company, yes, but you too. This isn't just business for her, Sebastian. It's personal." As if summoned by their conversation, Maya's phone rang. Victoria's name appeared on the screen. "Answer it," Sebastian said. "Put it on speaker." "Maya, darling," Victoria's voice was sickeningly sweet. "I just saw the social media situation. How devastating for you. All that hard work, all those authentic campaigns, reduced to hashtag activism." "What do you want, Victoria?" Maya asked. "I want to help, of course. I have the connections to make this go away, a few phone calls, some strategic counternarratives. The company's reputation could be salvaged. And in return, I think we both know what I want. Sebastian has to choose, the company's future, or a marketing director who's in way over her head." The line went dead. Maya and Sebastian sat in silence, watching as the social media storm continued to rage, their company's reputation crumbling in real time. "I have to resign," Maya said finally. "It's the only way to protect Blackstone Industries." "Absolutely not," Sebastian replied immediately. "Sebastian, be practical. The board will never support me after this. And if Victoria can make it stop. At what cost?" His voice was fierce. "Maya, what we've built here, what you've brought to this company, it's not just about marketing strategies. You've reminded us why we do this work in the first place." Maya looked at him, this man who'd become so much more than her boss, and felt her heart breaking. "Then what do we do?" Sebastian was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the Seattle skyline. When he spoke, his voice was determined. "We fight back. But not the way Victoria expects." The annual Northwest Tech Innovation Gala was the social event of the Seattle business calendar, held in the Grand Ballroom of the Four Seasons with over 2,000 industry leaders in attendance. The live stream would reach millions more around the world, making it the perfect stage for what Sebastian had planned. Maya sat at the Blackstone Industries table, trying to ignore the whispers and stares from other attendees. The past week had been brutal. 3 board members had called for her resignation, major clients had postponed meetings, and their stock price had dropped 12%. Victoria's sabotage campaign had been devastatingly effective. "Ladies and gentlemen," the MC announced, "please welcome Sebastian Kane, CEO of Blackstone Industries." As Sebastian took the stage, Maya's breath caught. He looked magnificent in his tailored tuxedo, but more than that, he looked resolved. This was a man who'd made peace with a difficult decision. "Thank you," Sebastian began, his voice carrying easily across the silent ballroom. "I'm here tonight not just to celebrate our industry's achievements, but to tell you a story about the most important business lesson I've ever learned." He paused, his gaze finding Maya in the crowd. 6 months ago, I was a broken man. I'd lost my wife, inherited a company in crisis, and was struggling to raise my infant daughter alone. I was at an airport, desperate to catch the last flight to a meeting that would determine my company's survival, when something extraordinary happened. The ballroom was completely silent now, 2,000 of the most powerful people in tech hanging on his every word. A young woman gave up her seat on that plane. She didn't know who I was, didn't know what was at stake. She just saw a father with a crying baby and chose kindness over her own needs. That woman saved my company that night, though she had no way of knowing it. Murmurs rippled through the crowd as people began to understand where this was heading. That woman was Maya Chen, now Blackstone Industries' chief marketing officer. The spotlight found Maya, and she felt her cheeks burn as hundreds of faces turned toward her. She wanted to disappear, but Sebastian's voice anchored her. This week, Maya has been the target of a coordinated attack designed to destroy her reputation and drive her from our company. The attacks have been vicious, calculated, and completely unfounded. They've come from someone who believes that business success requires stepping on others, that profit matters more than principle. Victoria Sterling, seated 3 tables away, had gone very pale. But Maya Chen taught me something that night at the airport, something that has transformed not just my company, but my understanding of what real leadership means. She taught me that the most powerful business strategy isn't ruthless competition, it's radical compassion. Sebastian's voice grew stronger, more passionate. Under Maya's leadership, our profits have increased by 40%. Employee satisfaction is at an all-time high. Customer loyalty has reached levels we've never seen before. But more than that, she's created a company culture where people want to work, where innovation flourishes, where success is measured not just in dollars but in lives improved. The applause started slowly, then built to a roar. Maya felt tears streaming down her cheeks as Sebastian continued. I stand before you tonight to say this. Maya Chen isn't just our chief marketing officer. She's the future of ethical business leadership. She's proof that you don't have to choose between profitability and humanity. And anyone who tries to tear down what she's built will have to go through me first. He stepped away from the podium, his eyes never leaving Maya's face. Maya, you once gave a desperate stranger hope when he needed it most. Tonight, I'm asking you to give us, the chance to build something extraordinary together. Not just as colleagues, but as partners in every sense of the word. The ballroom erupted as Sebastian made his way through the crowd toward Maya. She met him halfway, and when their hands touched, the noise faded into background static. Sebastian, she whispered, you didn't have to do this. Yes, I did, he replied. Because some things are more important than business deals or public opinion. And what we have, what we've built together, that's worth fighting for. Around them, 2,000 people were on their feet applauding, phone cameras capturing every moment. But Maya only saw Sebastian, only heard the sincerity in his voice, only felt the absolute certainty that this was exactly where she belonged. Is that a business proposal or something more? She asked, smiling through her tears. It's whatever you want it to be, he replied. But I'm hoping it's the beginning of everything. As the applause continued to thunder around them, Maya realized that Victoria's sabotage had backfired spectacularly. Instead of destroying her reputation, it had given Sebastian the perfect opportunity to declare his support publicly, irrevocably linking Blackstone Industries' future to Maya's vision. But more than that, it had given them both the courage to admit what had been building between them for months. Yes, Maya said simply. To all of it. Yes. 1 year later, the Blackstone Industries headquarters hummed with the energy of a company transformed. The 48th floor had been converted into a state-of-the-art childcare center, complete with a playground visible through glass walls so working parents could see their children throughout the day. Maya's real solutions, real impact, had evolved into a comprehensive corporate philosophy that other companies were scrambling to emulate. Maya stood in her new corner office. She'd been promoted to Chief Operating Officer after the company's most successful year in its history, watching Sebastian push 18-month-old Emma on a swing set while conducting a conference call via Bluetooth. The sight made her heart flutter just as it had that first night when she'd found them in the airport. Mama. Emma squealed when she spotted Maya through the window, clapping her chubby hands. The word still sent a thrill through Maya's chest. She'd legally adopted Emma 3 months ago, after she and Sebastian had gotten married in a small ceremony at the very airport gate where they'd first met. The same gate agent who'd witnessed their initial encounter had officiated the ceremony, making it a perfect circle of serendipity. Her phone buzzed with a text from Sebastian, "Board meeting in 10. Ready to change the world again?" Maya smiled and typed back, "Always. See you upstairs." The monthly board meeting had become one of Maya's favorite parts of the job. Gone were the days of skeptical executives questioning her methods. Aldridge, the silver-haired VP who'd once dismissed her ideas as idealistic, had become one of her strongest supporters after the social responsibility initiatives had generated over $50 million in new business. "Ladies and gentlemen," Sebastian announced as Maya entered the boardroom, "I'm pleased to report that our Q4 numbers exceed all projections. Revenue is up 63% year over year, and our employee retention rate is now the highest in the industry." Maya took her seat at Sebastian's right hand, noting with satisfaction that Victoria Sterling's former chair remained empty. Victoria had left Seattle shortly after the gala incident, her reputation in tatters after several former employees had come forward with stories of her unethical business practices. "But the real news," Sebastian continued, "comes from our Chief Operating Officer." Maya stood, feeling the familiar thrill of presenting an idea she was passionate about. "Thank you, Sebastian. Today, I'm excited to announce the Blackstone Foundation, a $50 million initiative that will provide technology education and entrepreneurship opportunities in underserved communities worldwide." The proposal she outlined was ambitious: coding bootcamps in refugee camps, startup incubators in rural communities, technology grants for women-owned businesses in developing countries. It was the kind of program that would have been dismissed as impossible just 2 years ago. "The foundation will be funded through a percentage of our annual profits," Maya explained, ensuring that our success directly translates to opportunities for others. "We're not just building a company, we're building a legacy." The unanimous approval came without debate. This was the new Blackstone Industries, where doing good and doing well were the same thing. After the meeting, Maya and Sebastian walked hand in hand to the childcare center to collect Emma. The little girl had grown into a bright, talkative toddler who charmed everyone she met and had inherited her father's intelligence and her adoptive mother's determination. "Mama, Dada, look." Emma pointed excitedly at a finger painting she'd created, a swirl of blue and green that she insisted was airplane clouds. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," Maya said, lifting Emma into her arms. "Should we go home and put it on the refrigerator?" As they rode the elevator down to the lobby, Emma babbling happily about her day, Maya reflected on the journey that had brought them here. What had started as a simple act of kindness at an airport gate had blossomed into a love story, a business revolution, and a family that proved blood wasn't the only thing that mattered. "What are you thinking about?" Sebastian asked, noticing her contemplative mood. "Just, all of it," Maya replied. "A year ago, if someone had told me I'd be married to a billionaire CEO, running a Fortune 500 company, and raising the most amazing little girl in the world, I would have said they were dreaming. And now?" Maya looked at her husband, at their daughter, at the building around them that represented everything they'd built together. "Now I know that sometimes the best dreams are the ones you never knew you had." Outside, Seattle sparkled in the evening light, and somewhere above them, planes traced paths across the sky, carrying passengers toward destinations unknown. Maya thought about all the small kindnesses happening at that very moment: strangers helping strangers, people choosing compassion over convenience, acts of grace that might seem insignificant but could change everything. "Come on," Sebastian said, taking her hand as they stepped out into the crisp evening air. "Let's go home." Home. The word carried so much weight now, not just a place, but a feeling. The security of being known, loved, chosen. The joy of building something beautiful with someone who understood that the best investments weren't in stocks or bonds, but in each other. As they walked toward their car, Emma pointing excitedly at the airplane clouds above them, Maya smiled. She'd given up a plane seat once upon a time, thinking it was a small sacrifice. She'd had no idea she was actually purchasing a ticket to the most extraordinary life she could have imagined. The annual Kindness Counts conference had become the most anticipated event in the business world, drawing thousands of leaders to Seattle to learn about Blackstone Industries' revolutionary approach to corporate responsibility. Maya stood backstage at the Seattle Convention Center, adjusting her blazer and taking deep breaths as she prepared for her keynote address. Through the curtain, she could see the packed auditorium. 5,000 business leaders from around the world, all gathered to hear about the power of compassionate capitalism. The Blackstone Foundation had now invested over $200 million in communities worldwide, creating opportunities for millions of people and inspiring hundreds of other companies to follow their model. "Mama, you look pretty," said 5-year-old Emma, who was dressed in a miniature version of Maya's navy blue suit. She'd insisted on coming to watch Mama's big speech, and Sebastian had arranged for her to sit in the front row with their newest addition, 2-year-old David, whom they'd adopted from the foster care system 6 months ago. "Thank you, sweetheart," Maya said, kneeling down to Emma's level. "Remember what we talked about? Mama has to give her speech now, but afterward we'll get ice cream." "Chocolate ice cream," Emma corrected seriously. "With sprinkles." "With sprinkles," Maya agreed, laughing. Sebastian appeared backstage, David balanced on his hip and a proud smile on his face. At 39, he'd grown into his role as both CEO and father with grace, and Maya fell in love with him a little more every day. "Ready to inspire another few thousand business leaders?" he asked, giving her a quick kiss. "Ready to change the world, you mean," Maya replied. "Ladies and gentlemen," the MC announced from the stage, "please welcome Maya Kane, Chief Operating Officer of Blackstone Industries and founder of the Blackstone Foundation." Maya took the stage to thunderous applause, looking out at an audience that included Fortune 500 CEOs, startup founders, and social entrepreneurs from 6 continents. Her story, their story, had become legend in business schools and boardrooms, proof that success didn't require sacrificing your soul. 5 years ago, Maya began, her voice clear and confident, "I gave up a plane seat to a stranger. I thought it was a small kindness, the kind of thing any decent person would do. I had no idea that one moment of compassion would reshape my entire life and ultimately touch millions of others." She told their story, the airport, the recognition, the challenges they'd faced, the love they'd built, the company they'd transformed. But more than that, she talked about what it all meant. "Kindness isn't weakness," she said, her voice rising with passion. "Compassion isn't just good PR. When we choose to see the humanity in others, when we prioritize people alongside profit, we don't just build better businesses, we build a better world." The standing ovation lasted nearly 5 minutes. As Maya left the stage, she was met by Sebastian and the children, Emma jumping up and down with excitement and David clapping his chubby hands in imitation of the crowd. "Did I do good?" Maya asked Sebastian, pulling him close. "You were perfect," he replied. "Just like that night at the airport." Later that evening, as they tucked the children into bed in their waterfront home overlooking Puget Sound, Maya reflected on the journey that had brought them here. The house was filled with laughter, finger paintings, family photos, and the comfortable chaos of a life built on love rather than perfection. "Story time," Emma announced, settling between Maya and Sebastian on her bed. "What story would you like tonight?" Sebastian asked. "The airplane story," Emma said without hesitation. It was her favorite, the tale of how Mama and Daddy met, how kindness had brought their family together, how one small choice had created a lifetime of love. As Sebastian began the familiar story, his voice warm and gentle in the lamplight, Maya looked around at their beautiful, imperfect family and smiled. She'd learned that fairy tales weren't about princes and castles. They were about ordinary people making extraordinary choices, about love that grew from seeds of kindness, about families created not by accident but by intention. Outside, planes traced silver paths across the star-filled sky, carrying passengers toward their own unknown destinies. And somewhere among them, Maya knew, were future stories of kindness, compassion, and connection waiting to unfold. The airplane story had become their family legend, but Maya understood now that it was really just the beginning. Every day brought new opportunities to choose kindness, to build something beautiful, to prove that the most important business in the world was the business of caring for each other. As Emma drifted off to sleep between them, her small hand clasped in Maya's, Sebastian finished the story the way he always did, and they all lived happily, kindly ever after. Maya squeezed his hand and whispered back, "The best kind of ever after there is."